Organize life in few steps. What if the chaos suffocating your life isn't actually failure, it's simply a system that's never been built? You're not broken. You're not falling behind. You're drowning beneath an avalanche of choices, information overload, and zero architecture to navigate it. When existence feels like controlled chaos, it's easy to surrender to despair, even while giving everything you have. This isn't motivational theater. This is a genuine wake-up call. In the next minutes, you'll discover 10 powerful principles that can reconstruct your entire existence, mentally, emotionally, and physically. No inspirational fluff, no unrealistic promises. Just crystalline clarity and actionable steps that actually reshape how you command your life, one decision at a time. You'll learn to eliminate energy waste, streamline your daily decisions, and establish the architecture that transforms overwhelm into laser focus. If your life feels off rhythm right now, stay until the very end. This might be the reset that changes everything. Let's begin. Calm. Clear. Real, ***. Chapter 1, Decide how you want life structured. I stand before you as someone who has spent a lifetime studying human behavior, watching why certain individuals radiate calm and control while others spiral into constant panic and fragmentation. The answer is rarely about luck or natural talent. It always traces back to a single quiet choice, one most people never pause long enough to make. That choice is this: consciously architect how you want your life shaped. Until you make that decision, your existence will be hijacked by others' demands, random circumstances, and fleeting impulses. This isn't weakness. This is simply how the human mind operates when left unguided. Most people stumble awake already behind schedule. Their phone dictates what's urgent. Work pulls them in one direction. Family demands they splinter in another. By nightfall, they collapse into exhaustion, not from accomplishment, but from fragmentation. They labored all day yet nothing feels complete. That incompleteness breeds frustration. Frustration metastasizes into self-doubt. Self-doubt hardens into quiet resentment toward life itself. This cycle spirals not because people lack strength, but because they never stop to design their days intentionally. Structure isn't about harsh control. It's about relief. The human nervous system breathes easier when it knows what comes next. When your days possess shape and rhythm, your mind relaxes. Your shoulders drop from your ears. You stop reacting like a pinball and start choosing like an architect. That transformation alone rewires your energy within days. Designing how you want life structured demands brutal honesty. You cannot construct order on a foundation of confusion. Sit with paper and pen, or in quiet solitude, and ask yourself the hard questions directly. How many hours should work genuinely command? How many should family receive? How much time belongs exclusively to you? Not someday, each single week. People claim they cannot find time, but time isn't discovered. It's allocated. Every person receives identical 24-hour days. What separates them is how strategically those hours are distributed. Structure emerges from mornings. Your morning patterns train everything that follows. A rushed morning creates a scattered mind. A calm morning creates a centered one. Decide precisely what your first hour should hold: wake time, solitude, movement, reading, intention setting. It doesn't demand perfection. It demands purposefulness. When you wake knowing exactly what that opening hour is designed for, you stop negotiating with yourself. That alone conserves enormous mental resources. Next comes work architecture. Work without boundaries drains faster than hard work ever could. Decide when labor begins and decisively ends. Identify what demands priority before anything touches your attention. Clarify what can genuinely wait. When everything seems critical, your nervous system stays perpetually activated. When your top priorities are unambiguous, your brain finds calm even during intense effort. Structure transmutes effort into advancement instead of mere depletion. Many avoid structure from a fear of stagnation or confinement. The opposite is true, absence of structure creates the stagnation. Days without direction blur together. Weeks evaporate. Years pass in silence. Structure creates texture. Work feels genuinely productive. Rest feels authentically earned. Connection feels truly present. Without architecture, everything collides and nothing feels resolved. Design how your evenings should feel. Evenings are where futures either flourish or decay. If nights overflow with stimulation and noise, your mind never achieves restoration. Create a simple pattern, designated hours when devices disappear, when conversation slows, when reflection happens. This isn't rules imposed externally. This is honoring your own nervous system. A tranquil evening births better sleep. Better sleep builds a stronger tomorrow. Structure applies to emotions as well. Most people allow feelings to command their schedules. When motivation peaks, they act. When energy dips, they quit. This inconsistency destroys progress. Decide in advance how you'll respond regardless of your mood. Commit to specific actions even on low-energy days. This dissolves inner resistance. You stop battling yourself. You simply honor the structure you've already chosen. Your physical environment must support your architecture. A chaotic space broadcasts mental static even when you've adapted to it. Decide what belongs in your surroundings and what should vanish. Establish where everything lives. Order in the physical world cascades into order within the mind. This isn't about aesthetics. This is about removing friction. When your environment supports your intentions, you preserve willpower for genuinely important decisions. Relationships demand structure too. Without clear boundaries, connections become depleting. Decide how much time you give. Establish when you're available and when you're not. Choose what you will and won't accept. This protects both your resources and your dignity. People respond to clarity. Confusion breeds conflict. Structure builds trust. Choosing how you want life structured requires the courage to decide what you'll stop doing. Every affirmation carries hidden rejections. Every commitment extracts a cost. Choose deliberately. Many people collapse from overwhelm not because they're weak, but because they're overcommit. They say yes to avoid momentary discomfort, then pay with months of stress. Architecture demands courage, the courage to disappoint others briefly so you don't disappoint yourself continuously. Structure births momentum. When actions repeat in predictable patterns, confidence compounds. You begin trusting yourself completely. You declare something and then you deliver. That reliability builds unshakable self-respect. Self-respect reshapes your posture, voice, and presence. People respond entirely differently to someone who lives with quiet order. Life will still deliver surprises. Structure doesn't eliminate challenges. It prepares you to meet them without losing your center. When the unexpected appears, you return to your architecture instead of fragmenting. It becomes your anchor point. This stability isn't flashy or dramatic. It's felt internally as composed strength. Most people wait for motivation to appear before organizing their lives. Motivation arrives after clarity crystallizes, never before. Architect your life first. Follow it even when enthusiasm hibernates. Energy follows motion. Confidence follows consistency. Peace follows order. If today feels chaotic, it doesn't signal failure. It signals your structure was never defined. Define it now. Start minuscule, 1 hour, one routine, one boundary. Expand from there. A beautifully structured life doesn't materialize overnight, but it begins with a single deliberate choice. When you choose how you want life structured, you cease being a passenger in your own story. You become the architect. That shift transforms how obstacles appear. Problems become solvable tasks. Tasks become manageable. Life becomes lighter, not because it's easy, but because it's deliberately designed. Decide the rhythm of your hours. Decide the cadence of your weeks. Decide the standards for your attention and presence. Life responds powerfully to clarity. Order births freedom. Architecture creates peace. And peace grants you the strength to grow intentionally every single day. Chapter 2: Choose priorities before reacting to everything. People exist in constant reaction mode. They react to notifications, alerts, demands, emergencies, opinions, and crises engineered by others. By day's end, they feel perpetually busy yet strangely hollow. Activity without purpose corrodes the soul. This doesn't happen because people are negligent. It happens because our brains evolved to respond rapidly to what feels urgent. Without conscious priorities, urgency becomes the dictator. When urgency leads, your true purpose quietly retreats. Selecting priorities before reacting is among the most transformative decisions you can make. It's also among the most difficult. Reaction feels instinctive. Priority requires contemplation. Reaction feels instant. Priority initially feels slower. But here's what most people miss: reacting all day consumes exponentially more energy than priority setting ever will. When you wake without priorities, your consciousness remains open to everything. Every sound commandeers attention. Every request feels critical. Every problem feels personal. This keeps your nervous system in perpetual threat detection mode. That ceaseless vigilance exhausts you even when the actual work isn't strenuous. This is why people feel drained after interrupt-filled days despite minimal tangible progress. Priorities give your mind a sieve. They signal to your brain what deserves focus and what can genuinely wait. When priorities crystallize, everything else naturally organizes around them. Your mind relaxes because it knows exactly what to concentrate on. This calm focus enables deeper work, superior decisions, and stronger follow-through. Most people conflate priorities with tasks. Tasks fluctuate daily. Priorities endure. Priorities are the life dimensions that deserve your peak energy: health, learning, relationships, work, expansion, recovery, contribution. When these are crystalline, tasks naturally align. Without priorities, tasks wage war against each other for your attention. Reaction surrenders your power to others' agendas. Priority reclaims your sovereignty. This doesn't mean shirking responsibility. It means strategically sequencing how you address it. When everything receives equal importance, nothing receives your strongest effort. The instant you react without thinking, you hand command to the loudest voice, nearest crisis, or strongest emotion. Over time, this trains your brain toward perpetual scattering. Your capacity for focus deteriorates. Confidence erodes. You start doubting your own capability to manage life, even though the actual issue isn't capability, it's absence of direction. Selecting priorities demands unflinching truth. You must acknowledge that certain things matter more than others. Many people resist this because they want every option remaining available. But a life without consciously chosen priorities becomes congested and diffuse. Advancement demands selection. You choose what earns attention and release the rest. Each morning, your mind should already know what matters most. This eliminates mental friction. When something unexpected surfaces, you compare it against your priorities. If it serves them, you engage. If it doesn't, you postpone, decline, or delegate. This simple evaluation saves countless hours of wasted effort every single week. Emotions frequently hijack people into reaction. Guilt, anxiety, enthusiasm, and pressure can all override priorities if they weren't firmly decided beforehand. This is precisely why priorities must be chosen during centered moments, never emotional ones. A clear mind chooses wisely. An emotional mind reacts impulsively. People frequently claim they're drowning in overwhelm. Usually, they're not drowning in tasks, they're drowning in indecision. Priorities slash decisions dramatically. When priorities are unambiguous, most choices are already made. You stop debating. You stop second-guessing. You move with confidence because your direction is already set. Selecting priorities strengthens relationships too. When you understand what matters, you communicate with transparency. Others know when you're present and when you're focused. This dissolves misunderstandings. People respect steadiness even when they disagree with your specific choices. Without priorities, rest becomes guilt-soaked. With priorities, rest becomes purposeful. You know precisely when work ends and recovery begins. This equilibrium prevents burnout from ever taking root. A restored mind thinks with clarity. A clear mind reinforces priorities. This creates a virtuous cycle. The world incentivizes people who react instantaneously. Notifications, alerts, and demands are engineered to grab your awareness. If you don't consciously choose priorities, the world will assign them for you. That default never leads to fulfillment. It leads to depletion. Priorities aren't rigid dogma. They're compass points. They shift as circumstances evolve, yet they never disappear. When life fundamentally changes, priorities adjust consciously, not automatically. This keeps you grounded through transition. Many fear missing out if they stop reacting constantly. The truth is precisely opposite. Reacting causes people to miss what genuinely matters. Time invested in reaction generates no lasting returns. Investment compounds something over time. Reaction leaves nothing behind. Choosing priorities teaches patience as a practice. You learn to pause before responding. That pause creates space for better judgment. Better judgment produces better outcomes. Others eventually recognize your steadiness. They trust your decisions because they witness your reliability. Life feels distinctly lighter when priorities lead. Obstacles remain, but they stop feeling catastrophic. You address them sequentially in order of importance. This restores your sense of capability. You start feeling in charge again. End-of-day reflection transforms completely. Instead of asking why you were relentlessly busy, you ask whether you honored your priorities. This question brings focus. Even when the day was imperfect, you know whether it held meaning. Selecting priorities before reacting is a daily discipline. It strengthens with practice. Initially, it feels unnatural. Reaction is familiar. Priority demands intention. Eventually, intentional living becomes your default. Noise surrenders to calm. Confusion yields to direction. This principle doesn't require radical transformation. It requires presence, awareness before response, deliberation before action, choice before habit. Every instance you pause and reference your priorities, you strengthen your self-leadership. A well-prioritized life feels grounded. You navigate each day with intention instead of urgency. You close your day with energy instead of regret. Development becomes deliberate rather than accidental. When priorities lead, your choices align with your deepest values. This alignment births inner peace. Peace constructs confidence. Confidence fuels courage. Courage allows you to defend your priorities when pressure intensifies. Choose what deserves your energy before the noise begins. Decide what commands your best self. Let everything else arrange itself accordingly. This is how scattered lives become focused. This is how effort becomes progress. This is how you stop merely reacting and start authoring your own existence. Chapter 3: Set Rules for Daily Personal Decisions. Most people mistakenly believe freedom emerges from unlimited options. The opposite is profoundly true. Infinite choices exhaust the mind. They manufacture paralysis, stress, and mental depletion. This is why people feel drained before their day even launches. They hemorrhage energy deciding rather than living. Setting rules for daily personal decisions is how you shield your energy and reclaim authority. You make hundreds of tiny decisions daily: wake time, food choices, scroll duration, whether to move, whether to speak or stay silent. Each selection drains mental reserves. By afternoon, your mind weakens measurably. Poor decisions emerge then, not from defective character, but from neural exhaustion. Rules eliminate redundant thinking. A rule is a choice you make once so you never need to remake it. This creates psychological space. When your mind isn't consumed by perpetual deciding, it becomes sharper, calmer, and profoundly more focused. Elite performers don't depend on willpower. They depend on rules. Willpower fluctuates with rest, stress, and circumstances. Rules stay constant. A rule declares, "This is how I live regardless of what I feel today." That consistency builds formidable strength over time. Rules aren't restrictions imposed externally. They're sacred agreements with yourself. They reflect your core values. They simplify existence. When rules guide your daily actions, chaos loses its stranglehold. Contemplate how much time evaporates deciding identical things repeatedly. Should I exercise today? Should I read or watch something? Should I stay awake late? These questions loop endlessly because no rule governs them. Once a rule exists, the question vanishes permanently. Rules should be straightforward and realistic. They're not meant to impress anyone. They're designed to support you on ordinary, difficult days. A rule that's too extreme will shatter. A rule that fits your real life will hold firm. Rules also dissolve internal conflict. Many people live in perpetual negotiation with themselves. One part craves growth, another craves comfort. This exhausting inner argument demolishes confidence. A clear rule ends the negotiation. You follow the rule and move forward without drama. Daily personal rules reshape who you become. Over time, you stop asking who you want to be. Your consistent actions answer that question completely. Steady behavior builds unshakable self-trust. Self-trust builds unbreakable confidence. Confidence transforms how you inhabit space in the world. Rules shield you when emotions ignite. Anger, anxiety, excitement, and restlessness often birth decisions you later regret deeply. A rule stands guard between emotion and action. It grants you a crucial pause. That pause preserves relationships, careers, and dignity. Rules generate internal justice. You treat yourself with unwavering consistency. You stop overindulging on good days and punishing yourself on hard days. Consistency develops discipline without harshness. Many believe rules eliminate flexibility. The reverse is true, rules generate genuine freedom. When basic decisions happen automatically, you liberate yourself to focus on growth, imagination, and authentic connection. Your peak energy no longer gets squandered on trivial choices. Rules activate momentum when inspiration hibernates. You don't wait until you feel prepared. The rule says you begin. Action precedes progress, never the reverse. This rewires your brain to move forward even when resistance pulls back. Rules teach you when to pause. Many wage battle with overwork and mental rumination. A rule establishing rest time grants you permission to recover without guilt. Rest becomes deliberate rather than accidental. The human brain flourishes when rules clarify the path. Stress plummets. Anxiety frequently stems from uncertainty. Rules demolish uncertainty. They establish predictability. Predictability builds calm. Rules deserve occasional reassessment. Life transforms. Responsibilities shift. Rules should evolve with awareness, not impulse. You adjust them thoughtfully rather than abandoning them rashly. Setting rules doesn't require flawlessness. You will violate rules sometimes. What matters is how you respond. You return to the rule without self-judgment or unnecessary drama. This strengthens your resilience. You learn to recover swiftly rather than surrender. Rules cultivate accountability. You stop attributing repeated struggles to external circumstances. You recognize that without rules, behavior drifts. With rules, behavior aligns with your intentions. People respect those who live by clear personal standards, even when they don't share them. They sense stability. Stability generates trust. Trust deepens relationships. Rules guide you through overwhelming days. When everything screams for attention, rules remind you what genuinely matters. They direct choices silently in the background. This reduces pressure without additional effort. Most people attempt life transformation by chasing motivation. Motivation evaporates. Rules persist. A rule requires no excitement. It only requires commitment. When rules structure your days, advancement becomes steady and reliable. You abandon dramatic effort binges followed by extended pauses. Small, consistent actions replace chaotic swings. Development becomes predictable rather than random. Rules streamline identity. You know who you are because you know how you consistently act. This clarity eliminates doubt. Doubt hemorrhages energy. Clarity restores it. Life becomes lighter, not because it's simpler, but because decisions carry less weight. Rules also safeguard long-term ambitions. Short-term cravings frequently battle future intentions. A rule prioritizes what truly matters. This builds genuine self-respect. You start esteeming yourself more profoundly. Setting rules for daily personal decisions isn't about dominance. It's about care. You value your future enough to clear obstacles from your present. You intentionally design your days rather than leaving them to chance. When rules govern behavior, days feel structured. Weeks feel productive. Months feel purposeful. You start witnessing advancement, not just activity. You stop asking why chaos persists. You recognize what was missing and construct it systematically through simple rules honored consistently. This principle revolutionizes how life feels. Decisions become effortless. Stress diminishes. Confidence expands. Direction strengthens. Decide how you'll live daily. Establish rules supporting who you're becoming. Follow them without drama. Adjust them with wisdom. Over time, these rules organize your entire existence from the inside outward. Chapter 4: Build order through simple repeatable actions. People constantly search for monumental changes to feel commanding their lives. They wait for inspiration to strike or for the perfect strategy to materialize. But truth is far simpler. Order doesn't arrive in one breakthrough moment. It's constructed quietly through small, repeatable actions, the kind you can honor even on your worst days. That's where genuine stability originates. Not in dramatic moments, but in daily patterns that make life feel anchored. When existence feels disorganized, the instinct is to intensify effort, work longer, juggle more, lengthen your to-do list. But without architecture, all that striving just generates exhaustion. You don't need increased pressure. You need consistent rhythm. The kind that doesn't depend on willpower or mood. The kind that repeats so regularly it becomes intrinsic to who you are. Your brain is engineered for repetition. That's how learning happens and how behavior becomes automatic. Without conscious intent, repetition reinforces whatever's familiar, even if it's unhelpful. This is precisely why building order means deciding which actions deserve repetition, then practicing them with quiet steadiness. One primary reason people feel swamped is chaotic daily patterns with no flow and no anchoring moments. They shift from one thing to the next, responding to whatever materializes. Over time, this absence of rhythm breeds anxiety. You feel perpetually behind despite constant busyness. Simple repeatable actions change this completely by giving your day structure, a steady frame you return to no matter what unfolds. Begin small. Don't attempt rebuilding your entire life in 1 week. Choose one section of your day, just one. Perhaps how you launch your morning. Perhaps how you conclude your workday. Select a time segment that feels chaotic and commit to one small action there, executed daily. Not just when inspiration strikes, but especially when you feel depleted, bored, or stressed, that's when it matters most. For instance, if mornings feel rushed, design a 5-minute routine, hydrate, sit silently, write your single top priority. That's all. Do it every day. After a while, your mind settles the moment that routine begins. This isn't about the action's magnitude. It's about frequency. Repetition transmutes effort into stability. Order emerges from knowing what's next. When your day overflows with uncertainty, you carry constant mental tension. Your consciousness stays on high alert, scanning for direction. But when you've practiced identical small actions repeatedly, your brain can finally relax. It already knows the sequence. You move through it without overthinking. That frees your attention for deeper focus and superior choices. This applies everywhere: your health, your work, your connections. When you want to feel in command of your time, establish blocks of repeated action. Answer messages at identical times daily. Review your intentions at the same hour. Create a system for connecting with people weekly rather than randomly. These aren't limitations. They're patterns that prevent your energy from scattering. Most people wait until they feel ready before beginning. But readiness is constructed through showing up. Repeating something daily manufactures emotional readiness. The more frequently you do it, the less internal resistance emerges. Internal debates cease. You simply begin. That's how consistency develops, not through superhuman discipline, but by making the action so normal it no longer needs convincing. There's profound comfort in not starting over every single day. Without rhythm, each morning demands complete momentum rebuilding. That's demoralizing. But with repeatable actions anchoring you, you carry momentum forward automatically. Even when circumstances spiral, there's a foundation to return to. That provides control even within disorder. Some imagine routines are monotonous and stifle creativity. The opposite is absolutely true. Creativity requires liberation. It requires mental clarity. Simple daily actions clear mental clutter. When you're not constantly figuring out what to do, you possess more capacity to think freely. Structure doesn't restrict you. It supports your best self. Look at which aspects of your life feel most difficult to manage. Maybe eating patterns are scattered everywhere. Maybe work focus disintegrates halfway through. Instead of overhauling everything simultaneously, ask, what small repeated action would create improvement? Eat the same nutritious breakfast daily. Protect 90 minutes of uninterrupted work each morning. These become your anchors. They stabilize you when life tries spinning you in every direction. This extends to emotional patterns too. If you battle overthinking or anxiety, create a repeatable reflection practice. Journal your thoughts before sleep. Ask yourself 3 questions each evening. What unfolded well today? What did I learn? What will I improve tomorrow? Repeating this trains your mind to process rather than spiral endlessly. The goal isn't robotic existence. The goal is reclaiming energy wasted on things that don't need attention. Repeating small actions liberates your mind for what genuinely counts. It permits you to be genuinely present with people, deeply focused in work, and grounded when difficulties surface. Don't wait for the ideal moment to establish these rhythms. Start during the difficulty. That's precisely when they're most needed. Don't pursue variety initially. Pursue reliability. Once your foundation is solid, you can personalize it, but first it requires steadiness. The finest order is the kind that holds when life becomes severe. That arrives from habits already established before pressure shows up. You don't need to think about them. They operate silently in the background and grant you strength you don't fully appreciate. Survey your life and pinpoint where disorder depletes you most severely. Choose one area. Establish one small repeatable action. Keep it simple enough to execute without strain. Do it daily, then expand gradually from there. These habits will develop slowly, yet they will transform everything. They establish a foundation you can depend on, not for weeks, but for decades. That's how genuine order emerges, quietly, simply, through repetition, and completely life-altering. Chapter 5: Control inputs that shape your behavior. What you feed your mind and body determines how you think, how you feel, how you behave. Most people remain astonishingly blind to how thoroughly their behavior is influenced by what they allow inside, what they watch, who they listen to, what they scroll through, even the environments they inhabit. The inputs surrounding you day after day slowly sculpt who you become, whether you recognize it or not. You cannot construct a focused, productive, meaningful existence if your inputs are perpetually noisy, negative, and draining. Our world overflows with constant signals battling for your awareness: notifications, headlines, content, opinions, arguments, suggestions, all competing fiercely for a piece of your consciousness. If you fail to take command of what enters your mind, you'll discover yourself becoming a version of yourself you never chose. And the cruelest part? It won't happen spectacularly. It happens gradually, imperceptibly. One distraction. One negative voice. One meaningless scroll. Before you recognize it, you're executing patterns that betray your values and contradict your goals. You must become deliberate about your inputs. The brain is not impartial. It absorbs everything it hears. It adapts to everything it observes. If your feeds overflow with conflict, your mind will anticipate it. If your spaces are loud and chaotic, your thinking will match. If your conversations are superficial and complaint-soaked, you'll lower your expectations for life itself. That's how transformation occurs, not through singular moments, but through repeated exposure to what you permit. Controlling inputs doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means consciously deciding what gets real estate in your attention. It means recognizing that consumption matters just as much as production. You cannot expect to remain sharp and inspired if constant, low-quality noise engulfs you. Just as food impacts your body, information and energy reshape your mind. Observe yourself honestly and ask, what are you allowing inside every single day? Which voices command your listening most? Are they building you up or breaking you down? What content do you consume when you're exhausted or restless? Is it advancing your growth or leaving you hollow afterward? You can't anticipate clarity and confidence if your mental environment is scattered. Start by building a filter. This filter comprises your core values and deepest goals. If something contradicts what you're becoming, it shouldn't have regular access to your consciousness. That includes people, discussions, videos, podcasts, articles, spaces, and even your self-talk. If you want to preserve focus, you must design a life that supports concentration rather than fractures it. Consider, if your goal is cultivating calm, focused consciousness, yet you begin every morning consuming heated news or reading inflammatory comments, you're already working against yourself. Your inputs have already created tension before your day even begins. Transform this by architecting your mornings around mental clarity. No phone for the first 30 minutes. No checking messages. No outside voices. Just space for your own thoughts to settle. The same applies to your relationships. You don't need to banish people, but you absolutely should manage access. If someone perpetually complains, gossips, or depletes your reserves, you owe yourself environmental protection. Time is energy. You don't get it back. Be selective with it. Your behavior is profoundly shaped by what you hear repeatedly. If you encounter something often enough, even false claims start sounding normal. If you're continuously absorbing negativity or fear-based thinking, your decisions will progressively reflect that contamination. This is precisely why choosing voices that champion discipline, learning, expansion, and peace is critical. You don't need additional noise. You need greater clarity. Think of your inputs like music you curate. You decide what's on the playlist. Fill your days with material reflecting who you want to become. Books that expand your thinking. Conversations that inspire you. Practices that calm your nervous system. These aren't luxuries. They're instruments for transformation. They support your intentions invisibly. Most people chase behavior change through forced new actions, but those actions crumble when your environment doesn't reinforce them. You can't birth new patterns in the middle of mental turbulence. Begin by shifting what's coming in. When you restore your inputs, your natural behavior begins shifting. You make superior choices without internal struggle. Your physical environment affects your brain profoundly too. The lighting in your room, surrounding noise levels, colors you see, aromas you notice, these details seem minor but dramatically impact focus and mood. If your space feels cluttered and loud, you'll experience that tension in your thoughts. A peaceful space cultivates a peaceful mind. That's not coincidence. It's direct reflection of the inputs your senses are receiving. Never underestimate silence's power. In a culture addicted to constant stimulation, silence becomes one of your most potent tools. Silence permits thinking. It gives your mind space to process instead of react. If you want to transform your behavior, grant your brain time away from constant input, a solitary walk without earbuds, a quiet evening without screens. These moments compound and establish mental resilience. Additionally, monitor the words you repeat internally. Self-talk is an input too. If you're relentlessly telling yourself you're inadequate or that nothing will work out, those words govern your behavior. You'll hesitate more. You'll sidestep risk. You'll play diminished. But when you speak to yourself with truth and encouragement, your actions strengthen considerably. Watch not just external inputs. Watch what you're feeding yourself internally as well. Transforming your inputs doesn't require perfection. It requires consciousness. You won't always succeed, but the more intentional you become, the more your behavior aligns with your aspirations. You'll spend less time recovering from emotional turmoil and more time actually building the life you crave. Implement small adjustments. Stop checking your phone the instant you wake. Unfollow accounts making you feel diminished. Spend 10 minutes daily listening to something that sharpens your mind. Defend your space from noise when you're doing meaningful work. These aren't significant sacrifices. They're small calibrations that produce dramatic results over time. Remember this profoundly: you become what surrounds you most. That includes people, content, conversations, environments, and your own awareness. If you want genuine growth, you must safeguard your mind like it matters, because it absolutely does. You cannot treat your attention as unlimited. You receive only so much each day. Invest it in inputs that propel you forward. The world won't stop trying to shape you, but you possess the power to decide what you absorb. That choice becomes your direction. That direction becomes your behavior. Your behavior architects your life. Protect your inputs and you protect your destiny. It's not always simple, but it's always worth it. Chapter 6: Create clear boundaries for time and energy. Every human possesses finite time and energy daily. No one receives bonus hours and nobody has limitless reserves. What distinguishes people who feel directed, stable, and tranquil from those who feel exhausted and overwhelmed isn't enhanced talent or fortune. It's clear boundaries. Boundaries safeguard what matters most. They're the invisible architecture that determines how your time and energy get allocated, and critically, how they don't. Without boundaries, everything suddenly feels urgent. Every notification appears essential. Every request feels binding. Every small task consumes disproportionate space. Over time, you lose your own direction. You begin existing in reaction mode, perpetually responding to others' urgencies, schedules, and demands. This exhausts you, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well. Creating clear boundaries isn't about harshness. It's about honesty. It's acknowledging that you cannot do everything, appear everywhere, or satisfy everyone. It's recognizing that your time and energy are irreplaceable, and once spent, they're permanently gone. If you're constantly distributing them without intention, there won't be anything left for what authentically matters. When setting boundaries, begin by examining your actual time. Review your day and ask where your hours genuinely disappear, not where you wish they'd go, but where they truly vanish. Patterns will surface. You'll notice moments where you consented to things deserving no attention. You'll see how much time dissolves into distraction, interruptions, or unplanned conversations. Boundaries around time begin by defining what each period should serve. When you know what a block is designated for, deep work, restoration, connection, expansion, you defend it more fiercely. Without time boundaries, work bleeding into evenings becomes normal. Social media consuming mornings become standard. Your concentration fractures constantly because you're attempting to stay accessible for everything. But when you decide in advance that specific hours are reserved for particular purposes, your day acquires architecture. You no longer interrogate yourself 100 times daily about what you should be doing. You already know. Energy boundaries function similarly. Certain people, environments, and conversations drain you more severely than others. That's not something to dismiss. It's something to notice and honor. If every interaction with someone leaves you mentally exhausted or emotionally depleted, that's information. If being somewhere makes thinking clearly nearly impossible, that's also information. Energy boundaries involve small shifts protecting your mental and emotional reserves. This might mean restricting phone call duration. It could mean taking short breaks after high-stress interactions. It could mean keeping your phone away at night because you know checking it accelerates your thoughts. These aren't restrictions shrinking your life. They're boundaries preserving your stability so you show up completely when it genuinely matters. Another essential aspect of boundary setting is mastering the ability to say no without shame. Many struggle with this. They consent to things beyond their capacity because they fear disappointing others. But every yes that misaligns with your values is a quiet no to something that does. That might be your well-being, your ambitions, your inner peace. Saying no isn't rejection. It's protection. You're not rejecting people. You're protecting your path. Make it simpler by preparing a few default responses for when requests don't align with your priorities. You don't need elaborate explanations. Simple phrases like, "I'm not available for that right now," or, "I need to concentrate on something else currently," suffice. You don't owe anyone apologies for managing your existence consciously. You only need to be clear. Boundaries also shield you from distraction. Every alert, chime, or pop-up invites you to abandon focus. Without structures governing your technology engagement, your day gets shaped by whatever captures your attention first. That's not how you construct a meaningful life. It's how you end up occupied all day yet feeling nothing was genuinely accomplished. Start modestly. Turn off non-critical notifications. Schedule specific times for messages. Create focus windows when nothing receives your attention unless it's genuinely urgent. These aren't dramatic changes. They're straightforward decisions protecting your awareness. When your attention is guarded, your energy stays steadier and your work deepens. You can also establish boundaries around emotional labor. If you're perpetually absorbing others' stress, their opinions, their demands, it corrodes your tranquility. You can care deeply without shouldering their feelings. You can listen without losing yourself. You can support others while preserving your own emotional wellness. This might mean leaving certain conversations earlier. It might involve declining arguments leading nowhere. It might mean permitting others to be frustrated with your choices without attempting to repair everything. Boundaries transcend tasks. They include emotional clarity, recognizing what belongs to you and what doesn't. Sometimes people resist when you establish boundaries. They're conditioned to your availability. They expect your consent. That's acceptable. That's part of the process. Your responsibility isn't making everyone comfortable with your boundary. Your responsibility is remaining loyal to what keeps you grounded and healthy. With time, people adjust. And even if they don't, you'll find yourself surrounded by people who respect your space rather than battling it. Boundaries also generate room for genuine restoration. Without clear demarcation, rest becomes anxiety-filled. You settle down to recharge, yet your mind continues racing through everything you should be doing. Boundaries quiet that noise. They grant permission to step back and restore because you've already decided when effort ends and recovery begins. This births one of living with boundaries' most powerful gifts, peace. When you understand where your time travels and where your energy is protected, life feels less hurried. You abandon chasing every appeal. You stop defending every decision. You begin navigating your days with calm clarity. You accomplish less, but you execute it better. Establishing this isn't something mastered rapidly. It requires patience to construct, recalibrate, and reinforce boundaries. You'll forget periodically. People will challenge you occasionally. But the more you practice, the more automatic it becomes. You start deciding your time instead of surrendering it. You start valuing your energy instead of exhausting it. You begin living on your terms, not reaction to others' agendas. Boundaries don't create isolation. They create resilience. They maintain your life's organization, your mind's clarity, and your heart's stability. In a world drowning in demands, boundaries are how you stay tethered to what authentically matters. Not eventually, but every single day, one clear line at a time. Chapter 7. Act consistently instead of relying on mood. Most people wait to feel inspired before taking action. They wait for motivation to materialize, for energy to spike, for inspiration to descend. But when you construct your life around emotional states, your advancement will be erratic, unreliable, and temporary. Moods are transient. Discipline endures. The people who accomplish lasting transformation don't depend on emotional states. They depend on unwavering consistency. They execute what's necessary whether they feel inspired or not. Certain days deliver soaring motivation, everything feels transparent, effort feels effortless. But other days bring depletion, your mind feels heavy, distractions feel more enticing than your ambitions. If your actions only materialize on the energized days, your results will perpetually remain fleeting. Authentic advancement emerges on days you show up despite the absence of enthusiasm. Acting consistently isn't about rigid automaticity. It's about commitment. It's declaring, "This matters enough that I'll do it even when I don't feel like it." When you embrace that mindset, your identity fundamentally transforms. You abandon depending on emotional fluctuations. You develop habits that carry you through the inevitable ups and downs. Moods are transient by design. They shift with sleep, nutrition, weather, tension, and countless invisible variables. Your ambitions shouldn't hinge on these fluctuations. You wouldn't trust someone whose direction changes every few moments. So why trust emotional states that transform every few hours to determine your life's trajectory? Consistency matters profoundly because your brain and body thrive on repetition. They build strength through routine. They expand through structure. Every time you repeat an action, you carve a neural pathway that makes the action easier next time. That's how genuine habits form, not through willpower in isolation, but through consistent behavior repeated relentlessly. Consider how you brush your teeth. You don't debate it. You don't assess if you're motivated. You simply do it because it's your routine. It's non-negotiable. Now imagine treating your most meaningful habits identically. Not dramatically, just expected. Just done. Too many people overanalyze small actions. They treat every workout, every reading block, every nutritious choice like it needs to feel remarkable. But greatness doesn't emerge from sporadic massive efforts. It's constructed from daily small efforts done steadily and quietly, done even when you see no reward appearing. It's not about flawlessness. It's about pattern. You will skip a day. You will feel off. That's profoundly human. But the crucial element is what happens next. Missing one day means nothing. Allowing it to extend into a week shatters momentum. People don't fail because they stumble. They fail because they don't return. Consistency demonstrates to yourself that you're genuinely serious. When you keep appearing, your brain begins trusting you completely. You stop requiring constant motivation because your identity is now intertwined with action, not emotion. You become the kind of person who delivers, not once, but relentlessly. Routine contains remarkable power because it shrinks decision fatigue. You don't need convincing repeatedly. You don't need to bargain with yourself. The more decisions you automate through consistent practice, the more energy you preserve for things demanding genuine consideration. You also develop profound resilience. Life will derail your plans. Crises will materialize. Disappointments will arrive. But when you're conditioned to acting regardless of emotional state, you'll navigate disruption without fragmenting. You'll adjust. You'll persist. You'll remain centered. Consistency frequently operates invisibly to others. People primarily observe results, yet results arrive long after work begins. Early consistency feels monotonous, occasionally boring. You might not detect significant change initially, but that doesn't mean transformation isn't happening. Just like water doesn't boil until reaching a specific temperature, your results won't manifest until consistency accumulates sufficient momentum to rupture through. This is why trusting the process matters profoundly. You must believe that showing up daily, even when nothing appears to be happening, eventually creates something extraordinary. Everyone craves advancement. Few possess the patience to repeat identical actions long enough to achieve it. To act consistently, you need systems, not inspiration. Systems are small structures that make action automatic, a designated location for workout gear, a set time for creative work, reminder telling you when to disconnect. Systems dissolve friction. They help you accomplish the work even when you're depleted, even when existence feels overwhelming. Additionally, eliminate drama from your routines. Stop postponing for the ideal moment. Stop checking whether you're inspired. Set the action and execute it. If it requires 10 minutes, wonderful. If it's not your finest effort, that's still good. The point is that you did it. That action, repeated again and again, fundamentally transforms how you perceive yourself. With time, something remarkable happens. You'll feel more robust. Not because life became simpler, but because you abandoned waiting to feel prepared. You'll trust yourself more profoundly because you've witnessed what occurs when you act without needing permission from your emotions. You'll make decisions grounded in principles rather than moods. That's when genuine transformation ignites. Because when you're no longer directed by feelings, you become genuinely stable. You abandon chasing inspiration and start constructing discipline. You stop questioning yourself and start propelling forward. You stop explaining why you didn't and start becoming the person who always does. There's nothing glamorous about consistency. It's not exhilarating. It doesn't always appear impressive, but it's profoundly powerful. It's what constructs character. It's what generates peace of mind. It's what moves you forward on days when nothing else seems possible. So if you're exhausted from feeling stuck, stop waiting to feel prepared. Decide who you're becoming. Then act like that person today, tomorrow, and every day after. Not for applause. Not for visible progress. Do it because that's who you're becoming. Let that truth carry you consistently, confidently, and quietly toward the life you're building with intention. Chapter 8, Review Patterns that Quietly Run Your Life. You exist largely through patterns you never consciously examine. How you begin your mornings. How you respond when pressure rises. How you approach obstacles. How you speak to yourself in solitude. These patterns operate silently. They direct your actions without your permission. If you never pause to study them honestly, they'll continue commanding your behavior without your consent. This is precisely why transformation begins with honest awareness. You cannot shift what you refuse to see. Most people crave different results. But they never pause to investigate where their current results originate. They attempt fresh strategies, absorb new information, launch new habits, all while operating on identical internal programming. If you've repeated the same patterns, faced identical challenges, reacted identically, an invisible routine is probably orchestrating it. Your patterns were constructed through repetition. Experiences. Beliefs absorbed during childhood. Messages heard in school. Situations survived. Eventually, they crystallize into how you behave, communicate, evade, and reason. And because they feel familiar, you accept them without interrogation. That's the danger. Familiarity doesn't equal truth. It just equals repetition. Examine last week honestly. Beyond surface activities, how did you actually move through existence? Did you feel hurried or grounded? Did you distract yourself every time boredom appeared? Did you sidestep difficult conversations? Did you delay starting important work? These aren't random behaviors. They're patterns forged through repetition. Unless you examine them with clarity, they'll continue spiraling, quietly shaping your life invisibly. Some patterns are obvious, but most are subtle. The harsh self-criticism when you slip up. The automatic agreement to things you don't want to do. The way you distract yourself whenever emotional discomfort surfaces. These are learned reactions. And without intervention, they become your identity, not because they're true, but because they're rehearsed. You must create space to study yourself, not condemn yourself, but study with genuine curiosity. Ask questions. What triggers certain reactions in you? When do you tend to surrender? When do you feel absolutely clear, deeply anxious, genuinely confident? Themes will emerge. Those themes reveal what you've been training unconsciously. You don't need to transform everything simultaneously. You need consciousness. Consciousness creates options. Without it, you respond automatically. With it, you choose your response. That single shift transforms everything. Once you recognize a pattern, you can interrupt it. You can ask, is this how I want to continue living? Not from shame, but from lucidity. Some patterns were protective at one point. Maybe you learned silence offered safety, or staying occupied numbed pain, or extreme self-reliance appeared necessary because nobody showed up when you needed support. But simply because something helped you endure previously doesn't mean it should direct your existence today. Maturity means recognizing when a pattern has outlived its usefulness. And here's something critical: patterns don't evaporate simply because you wish them away. They lose power when you stop reinforcing them. This is why awareness alone isn't sufficient. You need to combine awareness with different action. If you've always evaded difficult work by checking your phone, notice it, then stay with the discomfort next time. Sit with it. Let it pass. Each instance you do this, you're rewiring the loop. Reviewing your patterns transcends behavior. It includes beliefs. Many people harbor hidden convictions directing every decision: I'm fundamentally inadequate. Nothing works out. People genuinely don't value me. These beliefs guide behavior in ways that feel normal but aren't healthy. You must bring those assumptions into consciousness and challenge them. Ask, where did this originate? Is it even accurate? What has believing this cost me? Additionally, examine your environment. Your surroundings both reflect and reinforce patterns. The people you interact with daily. The routines anchoring your house. The systems you've built or neglected. Your technology habits. Your digital spaces. If your environment perpetually pulls you toward old patterns, you'll remain imprisoned even with excellent intentions. Reviewing patterns includes reviewing your setup. Don't overlook emotional responses either. If you're perpetually defensive, withdrawing, shutting down, or over-explaining, that's a pattern. Emotions aren't random. They're messengers. Instead of condemning your emotional reactions, approach them with curiosity. Ask what they're protecting. What anxiety or memory constructed them? That curiosity breaks the pattern. It lets you meet your patterns with compassion rather than resistance. Organizing your external life requires organizing your internal landscape. The outside reflects the inside. If things persistently feel chaotic, it's not purely a scheduling problem. It's a pattern problem. Maybe it's overcommitting. Maybe people-pleasing. Maybe perfectionism. Maybe never following through. These aren't personality constants. They're repeated responses restructurable through consciousness and choice. One of the most transformative practices is weekly reflection. Dedicate time each week to asking, what repeated patterns helped me this week? What slowed me down? What do I keep doing that no longer serves me? This is how you move forward without hauling unconscious behavior forward. Some resist self-examination because they're terrified of what they'll discover. The truth, you're already living out your patterns. Examining them doesn't create them. It grants you the ability to transform them. Ignoring them just keeps you stuck. Each new life phase demands releasing an old pattern. You cannot transport yesterday's habits into tomorrow's ambitions. The life you crave isn't built in one dramatic moment. It's constructed through tiny choices, repeated. And if you don't pause to review what you're repeating, you'll keep orbiting instead of advancing. This work isn't flashy. It's not always comfortable, but it's the most direct path to liberating yourself from the loops imprisoning your life. You don't need to become someone entirely different. You need to reconnect with who you were before patterns distorted you. And that begins with genuine attention. Pause. Not to fix everything, but to observe. Notice what operates automatically. Notice what you reach for when pressure rises. Notice what thoughts repeat endlessly. Notice who you become when nobody's watching. That's where genuine transformation starts. Not through force, but through clarity, quiet clarity revealing exactly what needs terminating, what needs maintaining, and what needs emerging if you're prepared to live deliberately rather than through unconscious repetition. Chapter 9: Remove habits that create mental chaos. There are habits appearing insignificant on the surface that carry enormous costs, not in money or time, but in mental clarity. These habits are frequently overlooked because they're widespread. Everyone practices them, so they must be benign, right? But when your thoughts feel scattered, your attention is weak, your decisions slow, your inspiration vanishes, these signals aren't laziness. They're mental chaos. And the source frequently hides in small repeated actions you practice daily without awareness. Mental chaos doesn't materialize suddenly. It accumulates gradually. You begin forgetting things. Your thoughts feel loud. Everything appears more daunting than reality. Yet none of this occurs accidentally. It happens because your mind is carrying excessive static frequently generated by patterns you've created. The initial type of habit-generating chaos is digital saturation. Constant connection, endless scrolling, jumping between applications every few moments trains your brain to never fully settle. You open your device intending one task. Suddenly you're 15 minutes deep in content that didn't educate you, didn't teach you, didn't generate peace. These habits splinter your attention into fragments. When attention is fragmented, thoughts scatter too. Your brain loses capacity for deep focus because it's been conditioned to expect constant switching. Another habit creating mental mess is agreeing too frequently. Every time you commit to something beyond your true capacity or energy, you introduce invisible burden to your day. You may not sense it instantly, but your mind remembers. It maintains a running inventory of promises made, even trivial ones. That inventory fills your mental space with apprehension, shame, or unfinished business. One acceptance after another and suddenly your schedule serves everyone except yourself. Then there's the habit of never finishing things. You initiate projects, encounter distraction, leave them incomplete, jump to something else. This doesn't just create physical clutter. It generates mental disorder. Open projects function like hidden applications running in your mind's background. Even when you forget them, your consciousness hasn't. It continues attempting to remind you. That mental strain accumulates, exhausting your ability to focus on the present. Multitasking is another silent source of mental confusion. Attempting multiple things simultaneously might feel productive, but it fractures your consciousness. You end up executing everything slower, making greater mistakes, feeling more exhausted. Your brain wasn't engineered to jump perpetually between tasks. When you grant it full attention, even briefly, it rewards you with transparency. But constant switching punishes you with anxiety and forgetfulness. You must also address overconsumption, not just of media, but of opinions, updates, other people's ideas. When your mind is flooded with information yet starved for processing space, you lose your own voice. You start doubting your judgments. You feel overwhelmed by choices not because they're complex, but because you've permitted excessive noise inside your thinking. Intake without intentionality is among the fastest routes to losing inner peace. Another habit birthing chaos is postponement. Every instance you delay something you know needs completion, you trade short-term comfort for long-term pressure. The task doesn't disappear. It lingers overhead. It amplifies pressure in your consciousness and maintains you in persistent low-grade tension. When procrastination becomes routine, that tension becomes your baseline. You inhabit constant mild stress that never entirely releases. Sleep disruption is also a profound source of mental disorder, yet many minimize it as trivial. Scrolling in bed. Staying awake without clear purpose. Starting your day underrested transforms your brain into confusion. You cannot contemplate clearly when perpetually depleted. You're more reactive, more emotional, less in command. Repairing sleep is among the simplest methods to reclaim mental organization, but it demands severing habits stealing your rest. And then there's your internal conversation. Relentless self-attack, uncertainty, continuous catastrophizing. This type of thinking didn't emerge randomly. It's rehearsed. You've practiced it, and repetition makes it feel natural. Your mind listens to what you communicate to it. If you keep feeding it stress, shame, and dread, it will manifest that in your choices, mood, and certainty. Frequently, the solution isn't accumulation. Often it's subtraction. Decrease what doesn't benefit you. Unfollow what generates comparison. Mute what drains your reserves. Create rules about your availability. Keep your phone distant during important work. Stop messaging during eating. These aren't extreme measures. They're little steps toward establishing space for your consciousness to decompress and refresh. Simplifying your physical environment also clarifies your thoughts. Your spaces communicate about your mental condition. If everything around you feels scattered, sustaining inner organization becomes difficult. Start by cleaning one small zone. Your desk. Your inbox. Your bag. Each space you restore gives your mind fewer things tracking, fewer incomplete reminders, more psychological breathing room. You don't need perfection to experience mental stability. But you do need intentionality. That involves examining your daily actions with honesty. Ask, what's generating stress unnecessarily? What's consuming energy that could feed something meaningful? What habits feel standard but leave me worse? Eliminating chaotic habits isn't about becoming mechanical. It's about generating mental space so you can consider clearly, perform confidently, feel grounded in your direction. It's about creating room for development without 100 distractions fragmenting you. It's about operating deliberately, not merely existing. It all starts with consciousness. You cannot shift what you won't examine. So pause. Observe. Track the behaviors that leave your mind chaotic. Don't condemn yourself. Just watch. Then, incrementally, start eliminating or substituting them. Not instantly, just steadily. With every pattern you change, your mind clarifies, your choices sharpen, your energy concentrates. Mental tranquility isn't something you receive. It's something you construct. And it originates with the courage to stop behaving in ways that feel comfortable yet chaotic and start behaving in ways that are uncomplicated, clear, and grounded. That's how you cultivate a mind you can depend on every single day. Chapter 10. Commit daily to living with intention. Living with intention transcends having the ultimate strategy or attempting to direct every aspect of existence. It's emerging each morning and deliberately choosing your approach. It's choosing what kind of presence you bring to the people surrounding you. What kind of consciousness you carry through difficulty. What kind of decisions you make when nobody's watching. Intention provides direction. Absent it, you drift. You wake up and follow whatever pulls you. You respond to whatever shouts loudest. You behave from routine instead of clarity. After a while, you experience disconnection from your own life. Committing daily to living with intention is how you reclaim your existence from distraction, pressure, and noise. It's how you prevent time from disappearing. Most people don't deliberately choose how they live. They repeat. They wake up and practice what they've perpetually done. Identical thoughts. Identical actions. Identical outcomes. Not because they want immobility, but because they never made the deliberate choice to shift. This is precisely why intention requires daily commitment. Not something you contemplate occasionally, but something you return to repeatedly, particularly when chaos increases or uncertainty clouds the path. Intentional existence begins the second you wake up. Before the world makes claims on you, you ask yourself, what genuinely matters today? Where should my energy travel? Who do I want to become in each space I enter? These aren't elaborate questions, but they're transformative because your answers reshape your behavior, focus, and perspective. When you don't pose them, your day gets absorbed by distraction. When you do, your day belongs to you. Operating automatically feels simple. It feels recognizable. It requires minimal effort. But recognizability doesn't equal alignment. Comfort doesn't automatically serve your expansion. Living deliberately means making daily selections based on your core principles, not your moods. It means declining shortcuts and embracing long-term thinking. It means prioritizing your future self's growth, even when your present self craves comfort. One of the greatest aspects of intentional living is safeguarding your time. Time is the vessel containing your decisions. If you surrender your hours to things that don't count, you're not just losing minutes, you're losing direction. Every hour should point towards something meaningful to you, even subtly. That doesn't mean relentless productivity. Resting intentionally is equally valuable as working intentionally. The distinction is that you choose it. You don't escape into it unconsciously. Energy matters profoundly too. You could possess infinite time, but if you don't steward your energy, time becomes meaningless. Living deliberately means noticing what fuels you and what depletes you. It means shaping your routine so you're not perpetually recovering from depletion. It means paying attention to people and tasks taking more than they offer and being transparent about what needs shifting. Protecting your energy isn't self-centered. It's vital. You cannot serve your ambitions, your bonds, or your development from exhaustion. Your environment influences intention. You cannot anticipate focus if your space overflows with distraction. You cannot contemplate clearly if your phone remains perpetually accessible and every pause gets filled with commotion. Living intentionally requires designing your surroundings to reinforce your aspirations, not undermine them. Position the book where you notice it. Configure your space so it welcomes focus rather than evasion. Make the default behavior the one supporting who you're becoming. Another facet of intentional living is your self-communication. Your inner dialogue shapes your action. If you perpetually critique, question, or assess yourself unfavorably, you'll make selections reflecting those convictions. But when your self-talk is rooted in truthfulness, kindness, and clarity, you establish a more powerful foundation for every action. Intentional existence means being aware of what you permit yourself to rehearse mentally because repeated thoughts crystallize into convictions and convictions become patterns. You don't need to architect every moment of your day to live deliberately. What matters more is how frequently you pause. The pause is where consciousness resides. Before beginning a task, pause and ask, why am I doing this? What's my purpose? What result do I want? Before speaking, pause and ask, will these words create understanding or confusion? Before committing, pause and ask, does this align with my values or just my need to satisfy others? These small instances of thoughtfulness alter everything. It's not about flawlessness. It's about transparency. You'll experience days slipping into automation. Days when forces pull you from what you value. That's natural. The goal isn't pristine execution. The goal is returning repeatedly. Returning to your values when you've drifted. Choosing again after you've reacted. Recalibrating your attention even after an exhausting day of fragmentation. That's what genuine commitment looks like. Not flawless performance, but steady return. Intentional living also involves deciding in advance who you want to become and then behaving aligned with that vision. If you crave being someone unshakable under pressure, you start exercising calmness during minor moments of difficulty. If you want to be someone who honors commitments, you follow through on declarations even when inconvenient. If you want deep presence with your loved ones, you put technology away during meaningful moments. These aren't grand dramatic actions. They're small decisions executed deliberately. There's something profoundly transformative about living this way. You experience less fragmentation. You stop hurrying through everything. You become more selective, more conscious. You abandon pursuing everything appearing urgent and concentrate on what's authentically important. You move through each day with intention rather than pressure, with purpose rather than bewilderment. That doesn't mean every day is simple. But it means every day belongs to you. Commit daily to living with intention. You don't need additional tools or strategies. You need one thing: presence. You need to emerge and determine that your existence matters too much to squander it. You need to notice what you're doing and why you're executing it. You need to choose repeatedly to inhabit alignment with who you genuinely are, not who external forces demand. You don't need to reshape everything simultaneously. You only need to care enough to stop operating on autopilot. Choose what deserves your devotion. Align your conduct. Pause frequently. Say affirmations more sparingly. Give yourself permission to transform your day's rhythm. It won't manifest instantly, but it will unfold with each decision made from clarity. Your existence becomes more significant, more peaceful, more yours. That's what intention provides. Not control, but direction. Not perfection, but peace. And when you inhabit that space, everything surrounding you starts shifting. You become a steady force. You start constructing a life reflecting what you genuinely believe. Not because you're fortunate or remarkably disciplined or unusual, but because you determine to live deliberately every single day. That's the commitment. That's the transformation. That's the labor that reshapes everything else. That's the decision that makes everything else possible.